Welcome to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we explore the ins and the outs of the seven figure journey. My name is David Gilliland, one of your hosts. I'm so delighted to have DJ Moore on with us from Erosion and Construction Solutions, Inc. DJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks. You got perfect.
We were all wondering if I would remember to say the name right, is why the little chuckle there at the beginning. DJ, tell us just a little bit about your business. I mean, what I gather is when new development or construction's happening, to make sure dirt doesn't enter into the clean water systems, you've got to have certain products, things have to be placed right, make sure the inspection, everything goes smoothly so those construction sites don't get major fines for pollution. Is that fair?
Yeah, so what that's called, every construction site has to have one. It's a stormwater pollution prevention plan, or a SWIP. Um, Really, the SWIP, everything that goes into it, it's one of the most important things on the job. It's the first thing on, the last thing off, but it's such a small overall portion, both financially and focus-wise for a lot of constructors, that it ends up being a headache. So it's one of those things that you have to do perfectly, you have to do meticulously, especially if you have an inspector on site. And if you don't do it right, you end up with fines and work stoppages and pollution. So we really specialize in that niche where we're a headache solver for a lot of those people. We free up our customers to do what they're good at by just doing what we're good at. So I like to say we're a lead for a lot of people.
I love that. So, how'd you get into this business, DJ?
Yeah, so my cousin and my dad had started a home building business when I was in college. I was a freshman, and I just kind of got thrown into it by helping out. I was on a framing crew my first summer at college. It was just trying to figure out the home building business as I got into it, and I started doing the financials. Taught myself accounting basically. I was a political science major at Purdue, so I had no financial background whatsoever. Over time, once I graduated, I got into it full time, and my cousin is our visionary. My cousin, who's now my business partner. My dad got out of the business. I bought him out, and my cousin is the visionary, and as a home builder, he had to deal with erosion control, and he didn't like the solutions that were out there, which is typically silt fence or straw wattles, stuff that they're used for the wrong application a lot of the time, and that's anything needs maintenance. But he found this rolled sediment device, and it wasn't being sold in our market, so he found a guy making it outside of our market, and being the visionary is, said, hey, we should start selling this. And then me being the integrator, saying, no, dude, let's just focus on building houses. We're already not doing a great job at that. And he didn't listen to me, and he kept going, and it just kept taking off, and more people wanted it. And then it got to the point where customers wanted it, but they needed it installed. So we went from being a broker for this guy making it out of state, and then we ended up building our own machines, perfecting the process, perfecting the product, making it ourselves, then installing it, then installing all the other stormwater pollution prevention measures, and just kind of blown up from there. And then we stopped. We went full time with it in 2016. Stopped building houses in 2017 because we just kind of realized you don't have to make your money back the way you lost it. And rather than trying to do two things okay, we just stopped doing one of them and went full tilt on the erosion control in 2017. So,
well, I want to stop for a second there. Normally, we've already transitioned to sharing a nugget that helps you in growth, but I mean, you just dropped one, like a really good one. Let's talk about that a little bit. First of all, that wasn't easy to choose to shut down your principal business to take this side one that has now grown and walk away from it. What was that like? How did you make that decision?
Honestly, I heard the quote from Tim Ferriss on his podcast, and it was just to repeat it. You don't have to make it back the way you lost it.
Yeah.
And I remember that really sat with me because we were really struggling. Like the home building business was struggling. It was 2000. I got into full time in 2009, so post housing crisis. It still hadn't fully recovered by 15.
No, it took 3 more years.
Yeah, and we were building higher end houses. So the clientele, everything had to be perfect. My cousin, my business partner, is a people pleaser. So you always want to keep the customer happy, and it was just continually the profit would just bleed and bleed and bleed. So I'd like to say it was a really hard decision. It wasn't, because we clearly weren't making a lot of money building houses. We built a beautiful house. I live in one of them. But it just, it came down to the fact that if we kept doing what we were going to do, what we were doing, it was going to be unsustainable. Um, and that was more me saying, hey, we need to stop doing this, because my cousin didn't want to stop doing it because that was his first love. That's what he's always done. Um, but really coming to terms with that, and making that, I want to say it was a tough decision. It really wasn't, because the outside factors were really just telling us like, hey, this is not going to keep working. So I would like to have some kind of like epiphany story for you, that I had this foresight that was phenomenal, but it's not that it's not that fairy tale ending. So
No, but it was. I mean, it was a challenge. You didn't. Most people, let's just say it kind of the way it is. Most people end up trying lots of markets with a similar product, or try to take a lot of products to a similar market, and then they pick something. You were sitting in a similar industry, serving totally different customers,
yeah,
totally different markets. You took one of the things you had to do in your job and said, what if we just did this one thing for everybody else instead? Let's be their
yeah,
subcontractor,
yeah.
right?
And I will say, because like that really has been, you don't have to make it. It kind of goes along with like sunk cost fallacy,
Yep.
where some people will stick to something so long. Because like one of the first big financial decisions we made with the new business, I invested in this service software that I thought we needed, just to better track how we were servicing how we were doing invoicing and everything, because we were doing it on Google Sheets originally, and it was just like one hit of the delete button and all of a sudden your revenue's gone. Um, so it was a significant investment. It was several $1,000s, which at the time it was like one of the most debilitating purchases we could have made. And I realized pretty quickly it was a bad decision, and it was sunk. Like the money, we weren't getting it back. It wasn't something we could cancel. We had all this investment, and I was terrified to pull the plug on it. And I went back to that quote of like, hey, you don't have to make it back the way you lost it. And rather than keep paying for this thing we didn't need, I just cut the cord. And you know, it was a big ego blow, because I'd done all this research. I thought this was the right thing. I had two partners, and they trusted me, and for me to come back and say, hey, remember that big investment we just made that I said was like the thing we needed? It's not. So that was really, and I mean, we didn't have a lot of money, so like that was really a hard
Yeah.
thing to do. So that one was more of a heroic thing, I guess, to say, not fall for that sunk cost fallacy and think that like, well, we did it. We just got to keep going with it. So
But let's sit for a second, because I think the lesson learned in the middle of it, you said it just in passing, but it was so core to it. You're like, it was an ego blow. And
everything will go well.
that's exactly what it is. Our sunk our custom home building that you were doing, high-end custom home building, it's who he was. It's
Yeah.
it's what we did. And it was an experiment. It was the proof to my in-laws that me being an entrepreneur wasn't a bad idea. It's
Yeah.
that idea of like, but the game of business, this is the game I'm playing, and I'm about to say I failed. I like that I'm no good at this game. I couldn't master it. I had to give up, as though that's a loss. But really, the game of entrepreneurship is no. You just move to the next one. You
Well,
figured
that's
out. You chase the value and you go create that.
and even if you do truly fail, you just go back to working a 9 to 5 job like everybody else is doing already. So like that's kind of what I always fell back on is, even if I fail, my worst case scenario is going back to doing what I was doing before.
Yeah, I'll still be able to cover my bills, but
So
so that kind of shift from custom home building to the other one was to admit we couldn't make it in that space in a great way. We tried 1,000 ways. It's not going to work for us. We're not built for that. But this other thing we could do really well at, and you move that way. So that's just a huge nugget. I just hope everyone's kind of listening in on that and dialing in.
to zero in on like that ego, like I keep these. One of the books that's been like influential for me is Colin Powell's "It Worked for Me," and
Yeah.
he's got 13 rules, and I keep them everywhere. Like I keep them taped to my desk, but the one really with this one is, avoid having your ego so close to your position that when your position falls, your ego goes with it.
Mm.
So that for me, it applies to that. It applies to, arguments that at work, all that stuff. So ego is the downfall of everything, typically.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Yeah, we've got one of our core values is check your ego at the door. If you got it, if it's important to you, fine. Never bring it into work.
Yep.
I think we got to do something else here. Very cool. Hey, any other nugget you want to share?
Man, I got all kinds of nuggets all day, every
I,
day.
I mean, you've passed that million mark. You've 4, 5, 6x past your million mark. You've learned a few more things. Give us another one that you're like, this has helped us. This has helped us get past a sticking point in that growth journey.
I mean, really, I know another Colin Powell. The being positive and just resolving. Like I was talking to. I do a lot of work with Purdue students in mentoring. So like it's a lot of kids trying to get internships, and there's one girl who's talking about how she's trying to get an internship with Disney or Universal, and she's sending cold LinkedIn messages and it's just not working. And I told her, I'm like, all right, if you had a gun to your head and you had to get a job at one of these places, what would you do? And we had so many guns to our heads over the years of like, this has to work. We have to make this work. And, the first couple of times you're like, well, I don't know if this is actually going to work. But then after the first couple, especially when you're doing it as a team and they start seeing like, hey, this is pretty bad and we fixed it and it's fine now. That's developed a superpower in everybody. Like, because in the beginning, the problems would happen where you're like, oh God, like what's going to happen next? Like, this sucks. And with each new one, it's like, oh yeah, like that sucks, but like we know we're gonna figure it out. It might take some time and it
Yeah.
might take some effort and some pain, but like we're gonna figure it out. And now it's like there's literally no problem. If there's a problem that we can control, like nobody's getting overwhelmed. It's a very like that positive attitude and just developing that and ensuring that like, assume you have a gun to your head and you have to figure this out. We figured it out every single time. So I think that's probably the most valuable nugget because it's made us effective problem solvers. Because when you're beginning with the end in mind and you're thinking like, all right, we know we're going to solve this. It's just a matter of figuring out which buttons we need to push and which processes we need to adapt or which people we need to bring in or which people we need to get rid of. That's the superpower because all it is every business, regardless of if you're $1 billion business or you're $1 million business, you have the same problems. It's just a matter of scale. So, and I mean, a lot of times it's people and a lot of the process stuff, you can fix that stuff because business is business. People are really the wild card. So once you get people on board and positive, that's been the biggest game changer, I think, is effective problem solving, that positive attitude and just knowing you're going to solve it. You just need to figure out how you're going to solve it.
I kind of like your twist on the positive. So, I mean, it's that positive we believe, but you're like a guns to your head. I mean, some might not think that's a positive, but the what's beautiful about it is it's saying, so if you had to really get out of your comfort zone, let's pretend you had to lay everything on the table to fix this. Now, what would you do? It's easy to send a LinkedIn thing, right? Like that gal was doing,
And it's,
but to buy a ticket and fly down there and talk to people,
that's literally what was in
right?
my head. And I
Right?
haven't told him that yet, but like that's exactly where I was going. But I think like I got that from Tony Robbins, where like I think he was saying like you had to run a marathon right now. Like you don't run a marathon, but what if someone's holding a gun? You're like you'll figure out how to run a marathon.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of how bad you want it and how convinced you are that you can do it.
Yeah. No, I really love that. Great. So, one, sunk costs. Believe and stop believing in those. Like, move away from them. Get on to the next thing. And then two, get the right people with positivity moving forward. Like get that optimism in there. We can solve it, any problem. We don't need to be paralyzed. We can figure this out, but you just got to want it enough and get creative, right? Get in there and figure this out.
And I'm not the rah guy either. Like you can still be positive and it still sucks, and you can still be like, man, this is really bad.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah. You can be real. You can be realistic.
yeah,
Brutally
I'm
honest
very
is what we call it, right?
very realistic person. So
Very cool. No, thank you so much. Well, what's the next kind of challenge that you, of course, positively with all the optimism in the world facing, but what are you dealing with now that maybe we could be of help while we're on the call?
Yeah, I mean, thinking a lot about this. So as we've grown, because we've gone from, when I started, it was three of us, and now it's 30. And really, my direct reports, really, I have my COO and my director of sales that report to me. So that's who I'm typically pouring into the most. Um, but even at 30 people, like that's not a huge head count. But I don't want to lose connection with those line level guys who might be have two levels of managers in
That's right.
between us. At the same time, I don't want to be stepping on their manager's toes because I've struggled with this where I don't want to be so removed where I don't even know guys' names, but I also don't want to be the guy who's stepping on their manager's toes in the process of doing it. Because I have had it where I've asked someone to lunch before, and then their manager's kind of sweating like, how come they're asking my guy to lunch? So that's what I've been thinking about the most now as we've grown, especially is how do I maintain that connection by keeping, because I'm big on genuine connections. Like if I don't know you, I'm not gonna, pretend I know you. I'm not like, I hate fake people, and I hate that. I
Yeah.
just hate that in general. So I want to keep genuine connections while also not interfering with everyone else's ability to function as managers and leaders.
Yeah. Great question of why does this actually matter to you? What's it like?
I
Is
mean,
this valuable enough of a problem to solve?
yeah, no, and I mean, if we're talking nuggets again, like really the past year, year plus, I've read every management book there, all the leadership stuff, and I used to just kind of take it for, um, advice and be like, yeah, you should do all that stuff, but I wasn't really bought into it until we just had some culture stuff happen where we thought we had this great culture, but it wasn't being intentionally set by me. I was just kind of hoping it would set itself,
Yeah.
and that's when I really realized the value of the quality of people you have. And you can have a great person, but if you're not growing them either personally, professionally, spiritually, emotionally, um, if you're not helping them develop in that, then eventually they're just going to kind of go stale.
Yeah.
So I've really had a huge focus on people and pouring into, especially my direct reports because they're the ones who kind of go out and do all the marching orders to make everything go. So and I remember, I worked for companies before too, where the CEO is this holier, well, this high and mighty guy that you never see, and what that feels like as an employee too. So I never want to be the guy who's totally unapproachable, but I also, don't want to be so in the trenches that I'm not focusing on the business when I need to be either. So
Yeah.
I want my people to think that and know that I actually do care about them, even if I might not know their name the first time I see them, because there's a lot of change that happens, and especially as we're growing. So um,
Great.
that's why it's important to me.
I love that. I'll give you another piece that matters is that you're at an inflection point. You mentioned 30 people. Every time you triple your business, you hit this spot, and 10 happens to be one of those spots. 30 happens to be one of those spots. Where 10, it was people and processes had to be figured out. You had to get a vision and the right people and the right processes. And when you kind of got that dialed in, you could bump up to 30. That was a good
Yeah.
system you're running. But your span of control and influence at 30 doesn't touch the same way.
Yeah.
And so your next two major challenges are leaders and culture,
Yeah.
right? It's how do I build my leaders that they can lead and support their teams and grow them the way I did with them. Each of the leaders now need to be able to take and build up 30 people under them that they're working, right?
Level 5 leader. That's been my
That's right.
focus
That's
heavily.
where you're going. You're building these leaders and you're ensuring this culture, and this will take you to 100 people. Okay, this particular step. And like you naturally feel it now. You're like that old gear I was in isn't working. I have to pedal too much and I'm not getting the same kind of return. I've kind of maxed it. And so it's this shifting gear time. So yeah, it's huge. It's worth the 3x of your business growth right now to figure out this piece. Well, there's other parts of it, but this is a piece of that puzzle. Um, All right, so let's play in it a little bit. One, let's address the skip level thing that people talk about, like talking to people down below and how I manage or how I lead, how I connect with them. There's a piece of your job that needs to have you touching those people still.
Yeah.
And then there's a piece of your job that needs to be handed off, and your head of sales and your COO have to do that work. And if they don't, they lose the credibility, they don't have the kind of influence. They need to have the deep, I know I'm helping you develop and grow professionally, socially, spiritually, whatever, economically, all those things. They have to do that work, or we'll have a void in your business and it will slow you down. So you have to hand that piece off by training them to be that deep, authentic connector on the daily. So they're the ones that are doing the weekly one-on-ones with every single team member. They're the ones during the week that are seeing and giving real-time feedback, that are cheering them on, that are, amazed at the cool things the team's bringing up, that are bringing up challenges they want them to help them think through. They're doing the daily operational in the trenches. But you have a job, which is to identify and sponsor up and coming leaders and individuals in your organization. Your team should help with that, but you can't relegate that. That's the leader of leaders role. Okay. And so let's build some other processes or spaces, and you may already have them built in. So let me ask you, do you have a system where right now you have like strategic offsite times when you maybe quarterly that you're looking at what are the big challenges we need to tackle?
And so we use EOS. So
great. You're using their management system.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing their little EOS thing. Here's something they do. They say identify rocks in their system. I'm going to throw that out just a little bit for a little. I actually want you to get more strategic priorities, and there won't be 10 of them. So they list like 10 spaces. You can put all these rocks. Those are more like department level to-dos. What?
It's three to seven is the goal.
Thank you. Bring it down to 3. I want 3 big ones, meaty ones, maybe 1. So 1 to 3 meaty ones that the entire company can get behind. So you could have these 3 to 7s, but some of them just belong to this department or this team, right? Those aren't company-wide priorities. Those are team priorities. Let them have those. Let's get a company 1 or 2 that's big, that everyone sees, that you sponsor one of those priorities, or one of your other team members does. That's fine. And then we pull in, just for that quarter only, we pull in an ad hoc team that's from various individuals who are already doing their day job well, that you're ready to give them some extra credit.
Yeah.
It's not extra pay.
Yeah.
They're actually putting in extra time to do the cool project with DJ. You may not even be leading it up. You may be a team member.
Yeah.
But you have a chance now to work with these individuals who are doing their day job. They're succeeding in that role. Now you're able to work with them, work alongside, help them think about the questions that need answering, not necessarily the solutions. That's right. And to train them in strategic thinking, prioritizing, planning, and in gathering resources to pull things off. Not by telling them how to, but by asking them questions.
Yeah.
This is a really cool hack. You're going to get really great work done. You're going to build great leaders, and you're going to build deep relationships. Next quarter, new team.
Yeah.
Next quarter, new team. You're not building a relationship with everyone, because when you're 80 people, it starts to get harder.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to do it the 80, I just suggest you take pictures of everybody. You have them somewhere on your wall, them and their spouse. You memorize their names. And when you see them, you ask about their spouse at the company parties. You hold the baby and shake hands. It gets challenging to really know everyone deeply. You may find a system, but this system at least is holding on to your responsibility to build the next level of leaders by testing them out,
Yeah.
trying them out, challenging them a little more, bring them in a second project the next quarter, testing them a little more, pushing some boundaries, and just growing them. And that's a meaningful way to do it. Hopefully that's a hack that'll work well for you at this stage.
We actually kind of inadvertently did that, not like planned like that, but we just kind of went through that same thing with a side project with two people that outside of their direct responsibilities, but has really done exactly what you're talking about. So being more intentional with that's a
Perfect.
Doing it a necessity more so than intentionally looking at the goals around that. So
when you're doing it intentionally, you get to intentionally say, oh, these are the people that I'm trying out now. Who else needs to be? Who else needs to be? I don't tend to bring people in who aren't succeeding in their day job. I want them to focus on their day job or move them to a new role to where they can succeed there. But anyone who is, and we, every quarter, I like to do a full list. I don't care if you have 50 people. Go down through the list. Are they red, yellow, green?
Yeah.
Right? Where are they at? Anyone who's green, they can be on one of these projects.
Yeah. No, that's good. I like that.
Okay. Well, that was valuable enough. I won't help you anymore, right? You got your money's worth out of this little call today.
Great. It's another big rock to go for. So.
Well, DJ, thank you so much for joining the call. And you shared some really great insights with the community.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
How could people get in touch with you if they want to either use your services or just to learn from you?
Yeah, so for the company, it's siltworm.com, SILTWRM, or ECSOntime.com for our services, 2 different divisions. And then me, I'm very big on LinkedIn at the urging of my director of sales and marketing. So that's the best place to find me. And easiest way is DJ Moore, like the Bears wide receiver. So that's the easiest way to find me.
Lovely. I'll connect myself with you there. DJ, Thank you so much again. That wraps up this episode of the 7-Figure Journey podcast. If you found value as a listener, please like, share, do whatever's necessary to get to other 7-figure business owners so they too can benefit from some of the insights DJ shared with us today. Until next time, keep learning, striving, growing, and caring.